In all the years that I've been reading DC Comics, I have never seen the Joker like this, and honestly, it's amazing. I'm really curious to see what you guys think about this. So, we are back with Matt Fraction's run, and what this does is this picks up with just a guy leaving a room, cell number 10, which houses a prisoner. And what this guy says when he gets on the phone is he just says, it's Josiah, he wants to talk. And so at that point, you switch over to Alleytown, right, with Bullock Investigations. Now, a little bit of a refresher for those of you guys who are unfamiliar with this, and honestly, it's cool that Matt Fraction is keeping this going. So when it comes to Gotham City, Vandal Savage is effectively the guy running the show, right? But for Jim Gordon, he had long since left and then rejoined the force, but now he's kind of been turned into a beat cop to a degree, and Harvey Bullock launched his own private investigation service. So when Batman shows up here, it's very different from what we're traditionally used to if you haven't been caught up on the Batman comics. But when he shows up here, right, Jim Gordon tells him, we've got something for you, right? And Harvey Bullock just says, just you. And he says, look, I got a guy, a trusted source. And Harvey Bullock's kind of hesitant here. And Batman just says, say it. And so at that point, Harvey says it's him. He wants to talk. And Batman races off. Now at that point, we pick up with the good doctor. Now, something to keep in mind about Dr. Zeller, we don't quite know if she's a good guy or a bad guy. She seems like a good guy, and she seems kind of like a helpless person to a degree. But Matt Fraction is a master of deception. Matt Fraction is the guy who's going to lead you down this path, right? Convince you things are going a certain way, and then yank the rug out from under you and totally shift things up. This man is a master of comic book writing, if nothing else. But Dr. Zeller kind of fills us in on what's going on, right? She says, the average brain uses less than 500 calories a day and generates around 1,200 watts of electricity. His burned through 8,000 calories and could light a Christmas tree before treatment. Patient 10 has been medically immobilized and mechanically piped. I manage the hyper-bioelectric activity in his mind through the crown of storms. He's isolated in a float tank, incubated for nutrients and oxygen. Cranial implants convert his thoughts to speech and transmit external sound to him in real time. And she says, I was excited when he mentioned a desire to speak with someone outside of his care team. I did not know he meant you. If he had asked, I would not have allowed it. Now, one of the things to keep in mind about Dr. Zeller, right, and the reason why I say she may be a good guy, maybe a bad guy, is the whole crown of storms, right? This is basically her method of psychotherapy, right? It's a way to kind of treat the underlying conditions that make criminals. It's a little strange and a little weird, but one of the things that we talked about and that was really mentioned in the comic at the very beginning of Matt Fraction's run is that historically speaking, the kind of mental health that you would need for guys like this doesn't work. Right? Most violent offenders on death row, most violent offenders and criminals, or guys struggling with mental health, you can treat that fairly easily. But for someone like this, no therapist out there is going to treat this guy effectively. But that's when Batman says, that's why he did not ask. That's not the way his mind works. And so Dr. Zeller fires back. She says, I think you would be surprised by how his mind works if you could be bothered to learn. Follow the green tiles. The red ones administer a medically incapacitating load of electricity, and take your shoes and socks off. Now, right? Goes in barefoot. And she says, these protocols are designed to keep everyone in room 10 safe. Us from him and him from us. And she says, if you deviate from a green tile, zap, right? Wall sensors extend that boundary into 3D space. Your proximity to patient 10 will be controlled at all times. If any part of you leaves the path, Batman figures out, zap, right? And he says, I understand, doctor. The level of security here is insane, right? It's absolutely insane. And she says, I will be right here the whole time, watching and listening to everything. If I suspect, even for a moment, that you mean to physically interact with my patient, my thumb comes off the kill switch. And she holds it up to him. Right? She holds it up and shows him, like, this is where my thumb is at right now. If I take it off, you die. that instant, right? There is no coming back from this, right? Done and done. And here's what we're talking about, right? Like she literally describes it to him. If I take my finger off of this kill switch, the floor discharges and room 10 turns into a total environmental vacuum. Your organs will burst. Rapid hypoxemia, and brain death ensue. I will not allow you to harm a patient in my care. She literally tells him, I will kill you. Right? Dude, it's bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers, right? And so at that point, Batman just says, I understand, Dr. Zeller. I am ready. And she says, stilling him has caused some secondary physical effects, Batman. So no, I don't think you are. And when he gets into the room, the Joker is in this incubation tank with this just mouthpiece attached to him and just staring straight at Batman. And all he says is, hey, you. Right? And so Batman doesn't quite know how to respond, but the Joker's looking directly at him. Right? Now, here's the crazy thing. There's a kind of desperation in his eyes. Maybe it's just me, but there's a kind of desperation in his eyes. And I almost wanted to read into this idea that there's something bigger going on than we're being led to believe. There's something much darker taking place inside this facility than we've been told by Matt Fraction so far. So I don't know, right? Maybe I'm just kind of reading into it. Maybe it's just the Joker looking at Batman like a crazy guy because the Joker's crazy. But Batman just asks, well, right, how did you do it, Joker? And that's where Dr. Zeller just says, please refer to him as patient 10. And Batman just says, I am not going to call him that. Someone managed to contact me from inside your bespoke prison, Dr. Zeller. He is still the Joker. Now, here's the question a lot of people are going to have here, right? What happened? All right, here's the crazy thing. We saw the Joker at the end of DCKO. Right, but then there's also Hush 2, which has not been finished. It's been delayed all to hell, and we don't even know when that's ever going to come out. So the reality here is we don't have an answer to how the Joker got this way. We do get some measure of an explanation, and you'll see what I'm talking about, but for the most part, we don't fully know what's going on. But in response to the idea of someone basically communicating with the Joker's response is, I don't want to say. And Batman says, your perfect Joker prison is already compromised, Doctor. He has people inside Arkham Towers. Suspend and secure everyone that's had access to floor 10 and room 10. Knowing him, that will be the person he wants you to find. There will be others that you won't. And he just says, we're done here. And so at that point, when he turns to leave, the Joker stops him and just says, wait, please, I will tell you. And he says his name is Josiah Jones. He's an orderly. He used to be a policeman. That was when we met. And then he wasn't a policeman anymore. And he says Josiah's training as an officer and the challenged face in his own recovery made him an ideal hire, Dr. Zeller. Please do not punish him for helping me, because this is the guy who sent the message that the Joker wants to talk to Batman. And the Joker says, maybe he came here to help others like him. Maybe this is the only place that would hire someone that looks as he does now. The world is capricious and cruel to the different. Or maybe Josiah was biding his time until I finally arrived and he'd try to kill me. I don't know. Maybe Josiah didn't know himself. Rage can do strange things to the mind. Now, it's also important to specify here, this is the first appearance of Josiah Jones. Initially, I thought it was Josiah Wormwood from Batman the Animated Series. You guys remember who I'm talking about? The guy who would set those traps, right? That was an amazing episode. I loved that guy. I thought it might be him, right? But this is the first appearance of this guy. But clearly, he and the Joker have history, and seemingly the Joker had taunted him, right? He sprayed him in the face with a fire extinguisher, maybe did worse than that. We don't really get a whole backstory for him. But what's important here is this. The Joker says, whatever this man's motivation was, it brought him into room 10 and it vanished when he saw me. He comes by on his rounds some nights and we talk. I asked him to reach out to some of our mutual acquaintances to contact you. And now here you are. Anyway, I think that's how it happened. It's hard to tell sometimes. Now, this part is nuts because Batman responds and says, is that the gag, Joker? You can't remember all the horrible things that you've done anymore. That monster was someone else from some other life, right? Are you fixed now? Is the question that he's asking. Have you somehow turned over a new leaf? But the response of the Joker is he says, on the contrary, Batman, I remember right? And then we kind of get this crazy full-page splash of all the shenanigans that Joker's gotten involved in over the course of his life. And he just says, I remember everything. And that's what's nuts about this, right? Because there are references here to massive stories in DC Comics. There's references to Emperor Joker, right? There's references to the Killing Joke, right? There's references to Harley Quinn, all this stuff, right? There's references to killing Jason Todd. Now, here's one of the things to keep in mind about the Joker mythos in DC Comics. Even the Joker himself has said historically he doesn't remember his own past. That was the whole idea behind the Killing Joke. It was Alan Moore giving us the origin of the Joker and then teasing us with the idea that even the Joker himself doesn't know if it's true. So it was Alan Moore telling us, we don't even know if it's true. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. Now, over the years, the Killing Joke has become the definitive origin story of the Joker, just because of how landmark that comic is. But this guy never remembers his own past, but now he does. He remembers it all. And that's what he says. I cannot tell them apart. Memories and dreams. All my dreams are nightmares. And he says, I cannot explain what gifts Dr. Zeller and her remarkable device have been, what it feels like to have some sort of clarity of thought after all those years, adrift on a relentlessly churning sea. She named it after the ocean of storms on the moon. Did she tell you that? Right? Perhaps this is her story to tell. She's a remarkable person, Batman. I hope you get to know her. It's the most lucid Joker's ever been. Right? He's straightforward here, right? And he says, I know it was me. I know what I've done and what I am. I am monstrous and cruel and violent. And I am thankful to be contained. And that's what's wild. The closest you get to a story like this are the old Batman black and white comics where it turned out the Joker was just faking the entire time. He's actually been sane this whole time. I'm pretty sure we covered it. If we did, you'll find a link to it down in the description. But the fact is, Batman just kind of sighs to himself. He has the hardest time taking the Joker seriously. He says, the devil's back in his hole. The opening gambit at last. Is that the play? Now, this pisses off Dr. Zeller to no end, because for her, it's not so much Batman rebuking the fact that the Joker is fixed. It's Batman rebuking her therapy. It's Batman rejecting everything she stands for and the entirety of her life's work. If Batman cannot believe the Joker can be fixed, then Batman cannot believe that her psychotherapy can work. And that is an affront to everything she stands for. But that's where, when Batman says that, right, when he makes that statement, the opening gambit at last, right, that's the play, the Joker responds, I beg your pardon? And it's kind of crazy the way Batman says this, right? It's like the way he responds, you can almost kind of read it in this way, right? Where he's like, so you're all done with games and plans and traps now that Dr. Zeller's miracle device has shown you the way, right? You've opened up a whole new world. And since your treatment has been so successful, why not take the needles out of your spine? Maybe get the tubes out of you, right? Let you walk around a little bit. Come on, right? And that's where he just says, he's wasting my time, right? Batman does not take seriously the fact that Joker can be fixed, right? Batman even tells Dr. Zeller, clear a path to the door for me now. Let me leave. And Joker just tells him, you must never allow me to leave this container under any circumstances. Even if I convince her, I know you will never be fooled. I asked to see you for 2 reasons. The second reason is a secret. And Batman's just like, great, right? I love secrets. What's the first, right? And Joker just says, this may be empathy. I'm unsure, but I think you're lonely. And I think you need a friend. And Batman doesn't take him seriously. He's like, do I now? Right? And the Joker just says, I know you do. My ceaseless compulsions, monomania, megalomania, the obsessive drive to control and manipulate every detail of every day, it was exhausting. You were the only one that saw the effort. You are the only one that ever understood. Maybe I was the only one that ever understood you too. Do you know what I remember feeling most of all before I came to reside here? My constant companion through all the killing and planning and torture and mayhem and rage. Lonely Batman. Endlessly, ceaselessly lonely. And this is the most accurate thing that the Joker has ever said. And Batman dismisses it, right? He says, I am a lone Joker, not lonely. 2 different things. Semantics. Right? At this point, when you're talking about somebody like Batman, semantics, right? To be alone is to be lonely, because Batman's source of being alone is that he doesn't trust anybody. And to not trust anybody is to be lonely, is to be an island surrounded by land masses, all the while just out there by yourself, right? Just floating through the ocean, begging for a life raft that no one will ever throw you because you pushed everyone away. That's where Batman is. Now, technically he does have his sidekicks, but notice this, he keeps them all at arm's length. He keeps almost everybody at arm's length. The only real exception to that might be Damian. But if you go and look at any Detective Comics story, right, when he's with the Bat family, that's what you run into. Even with Selina Kyle, she left him and walked away from the wedding because she knew he has to be Batman. And Batman cannot be two people at once. He cannot be the husband of Selina Kyle and be Batman. He has to dedicate his life to one thing entirely. And notice, when he had the choice, he did not leave Batman behind. He went with Batman and let Selina Kyle do her own thing. And that's what's so crazy. It's because when Batman says this, right, I am a lone Joker, not lonely, two different things. He says, I can tell the difference. And the Joker just says, yes, of course. I used to tell myself the same thing. And so Dr. Zeller kind of chimes in and says, okay, gentlemen, we should end our time together here. I am activating the egress path now, Batman. And she just says, mind your cape. It looks like it gets pretty swooshy and the spatial sensors are unforgiving. And so Joker just says, Dr. Zeller, a favor, right? And she says, I'm listening. And he says, I really did have two reasons for wishing to speak with Batman today. And I can tell him the secret one, but I cannot tell you. And initially she's kind of incredulous, right? Like, I'm your therapist, unless you're going to harm anyone or yourself. And the Joker cuts her off. He says, yes, doctor, I understand doctor-patient confidentiality. This is more a matter of the kind of confidentiality that exists between the two of them. Now, I'm not an expert in doctor-patient confidentiality, but as I understand it, that goes out the window when a statement is made between a patient and a therapist in the presence of a third party, right? Because at that point, that's the way in. Now, I'm not an expert on that. I won't purport to be, but as I understand it, that's kind of the crack in the armor, so to speak. And so what ends up happening, the Joker says, whatever it is that he and I are, right? Now, that's been a big thing too, right? That the Joker and Batman are kind of in love with each other, or it's a cat and mouse game that they love, right? Theories abound about all that stuff. And so Dr. Zeller just says, why do I feel like I'm being manipulated, patient 10? And the Joker's honest. He says, because I'm trying to manipulate you into giving me something that I want, of course. You don't have to stop watching, but I need you to promise to stop listening, only for a moment. And so at that point, she just says, 30 seconds, do not stutter, and shuts off the microphone so she can't hear anything they're saying, right? And this is verified, right? She cannot hear anything Batman says to the Joker. She can see his mouth moving, but that's it. But Batman just looks down at his wrists and just says, tick-tock. And so the Joker tells him, you were correct, of course. I hear all kinds of things from all of Gotham's darkest places. I could not ignore them, even if I tried. And I have heard something dangerous is in the offing. And Batman's just kind of like, so? And that's where the Joker tells him, I cannot ascertain anything more than the faintest hint of its existence, but it remains beyond my reach. That alone makes it interesting to me. And so Batman kind of quotes here. He says, something dangerous is happening in Gotham City. Great tip, patient 10. Good night. It's Gotham City. There's always something dangerous happening there. But the Joker stops him and says, someone's coming to kill you. I don't know who, and I cannot stop it. And Batman just says, I'm Batman. People try to kill me all the time. You've discovered that it's Tuesday. So he's incredibly dismissive. But the Joker stops him and says, no, you don't understand. Someone's coming to kill you, Bruce, and refers to Batman as Bruce Wayne. Now, people who are new to Batman comics, their minds are blown by this, right? People don't know that the Joker's known Batman's identity for years. In the modern era, right, post-Flashpoint, it's been a thing since the New 52. Right, it's been a thing since like Death of the Family and Endgame, when Batman realized that Joker had broken into the Batcave. We can remaster the New 52 Batman if you guys are interested, but Joker breaks into the Batcave, right? And seemingly figures out Batman's identity. Batman goes to visit him, and the Joker doesn't care that Batman is Bruce Wayne. All the Joker cares about is that Batman chase him around. So this is not a new thing, but it is huge that someone is coming after Bruce Wayne, because what this indicates is that someone out there knows Bruce Wayne is Batman. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.